when it comes to the US, the way we view things here in Europe is that everything in the US when it comes to trade is basically bad. There is no silver lining to this. It's the trust has been eroded. We're facing steep tariffs when you trade with the Americans. There is a kind of there's no formal agreement, but there is some kind of a deal which will to try to mitigate the effects. But no one really believes the deal will last. Uh, and then there is the diverging views on the green transition. Just hearing Donald Trump speaking at the UN last week, it's very different from the discussion that is going on in Europe. And if our businesses have invested heavily in taking part of the green transition, and then suddenly Donald Trump, no, not suddenly, he said it all the time, but Donald Trump saying we're not interested in the green transition, then of course we have a major problem also from a business perspective. Why did the EU, why is the EU still so lame and not hitting back against the US? The primary reason is because of the war in Ukraine. As long as the Americans continue to support Ukraine, which they do actually, despite all the rhetoric from Trump, uh, Europe will probably remain calm and hope for continued American support. Coming to China, I think we have reached a peak China in the sense of trade with China would not increase anymore. It will probably start decreasing. It has started decreasing. China is not trusted. I happen to come from a country where the vast majority of people say they don't trust China at all. But businesses continue trading and they need to trade with China because there's so much China has to offer to us, both as a supplier, all the kind of things we need, and as a major market. Some businesses actually say they fear China less than the US because China is behaving more according to the rule book than the US does. But that's, of course, a matter of perspective. Um, but as I said, quite a number of firms are divesting and reducing the dependence on China as a source of production. And that, when it comes to the issue of jobs, could mean new jobs in India. It could mean new jobs in the Southeast Asia region, but it seems to mostly lead to new jobs in Europe, actually, because most of the firms that are, to some extent, leaving China, reducing their presence in China, seem to be heading back to their headquarter countries in Europe. But it's still early days. We'll see. I also wanted to say that the green transition in China is very different from what's happening in the US, and that does provide a major opportunity for Europe, but it's also a major threat. And last autumn, 1 year ago, I was very much involved in the issue of whether Europe should or should not impose countervailing measures against the imports of Chinese electrical vehicles. So these vehicles are needed for the green transition in Europe, but they're also supported by unfair state aid in China, which distort the marketplace, and that needs to be addressed. Yeah, it's a lot of on the one hand, but on the other hand, when it comes to China. Then finally, India. India is clearly flying under the radar. Most media is focused on the US, to much less extent China, and to an even less extent India. But to the extent that businesses think about India, they almost only see it as an opportunity. India is not seen as a threat. India has soft power in Europe, unlike the US and China, but it's mild soft power because people don't think about India so much. But we, from our organization, view it as a potential long-term growth area where the peak, unlike with US and China, the peak is very, very, very far away. We have only started our trading relationship with India. Uh, and there is one major problem, of course, which won't go away, and that is the fact that India has very close relations with Russia, which is a really, really big problem for us because that stops us from having a, shall we say, more strategic alliance with India, but it doesn't stop us from having a much more fruitful trade relationship.